The regular city council meeting of September 16th, 2020 to order at 7:05. If you join me in pledging the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mayor Copeland.
Here.
Tom Baylor.
Here.
Kathy Sherman.
Here.
Jeff Guard.
Here.
Melina Meyer.
Here.
Ann Schaefer.
Here.
David Allison.
Here.
And David Gleason.
I'm here.
That's everyone.
Move to approve the agenda. Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the regular agenda. Any additions? All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the agenda will stand as submitted. Council, do you have any conflicts of interest or ex parte communications to declare?
This is Melina.
Vice Mayor Meyer.
I have a conflict with item number 16. My parents are the owners of Cannery Row, and so you could say ex parte communications conflict. I know too much.
Okay, I agree that's a conflict. Council can disagree if they like to and overturn that. I'll declare a conflict of interest on resolution 9-20-35, and even though I don't vote and normally wouldn't participate in discussion on an item, my wife works for the Appraisal Company of Alaska. So if council prefers, I can pass the gavel. Otherwise, I recognize that I won't be in any way influencing or participating in the discussion. And then also on item 16, Councilman Allison.
Well, I was just going to state, just for transparency so that we can get it out there. We all have a conflict on item number 14. Since we do, then it's been ruled before that it's not a conflict if we all have a conflict, so.
Gotcha. It's a conflict everyone in the community, including council, shares. So participants in COVID funding. I would just mention that item 16, disposal of land method, that's a quasi-judicial function of council. So if any council did have conversations with the method of disposal or terms or anything like that, now would be the time to disclose that as ex parte communications, just for transparency and for the rest of council. Okay. So hearing none, there's those conflicts. Communications by and petitions from visitors, guest speakers, have incident management team COVID-19 update. City Manager Howarth.
Yes, I believe Dr. Sanders, are you on the line?
I am.
So Dr. Sanders will give this report.
So today we got to move the dashboard down to 0 COVID cases in Cordova again, which is always something that we celebrate. I think things are going well. The significant changes are that we will have a change to airport testing coming after this weekend. The ambassadors in airport testing did an excellent job pivoting when the tent blew down, and the city manager and the rest of the incident command that is still operational were able to get a Connex box out there, and we have resumed airport testing. However, starting the next Monday, we will have testing only available at pre-scheduled community times on Monday through Saturday, and there will be no testing for screening available on Sundays. For symptomatic or emergency cases, we will continue to have 24/7 access to emergency testing. Other things in terms of COVID that we are preparing and paying attention to, all of us here in Cordova and the healthcare team are watching the vaccine development, and we'll be ready to pivot to distributing a COVID vaccine when that's available. Right now, it is a very important year to get a flu vaccine. One of the reasons is to decrease the number of respiratory illnesses that will eventually end up impacting our hospitalization rates. So, and as much as we can decrease respiratory illness in our community and not have that confused with COVID, that will help support our response and keep our community healthy. So we, in the next week or two, will be doing flu vaccine clinics with Alanka and CCMC. That's all that I have for the COVID response, but glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Sanders. Councilman Baylor, then Guard.
Thanks for being here, Dr. Sanders. Could you just clarify, so that out at the airport, will the personnel no longer be there, or they're just not doing testing? And
We will still, the ambassadors will still be there reading new arrival, people that are arriving. They will be checking declarations and giving people the information regarding the testing times. Most out-of-state travelers are arriving with a test. The state has been very clear in that requirement. People need to get tested 72 hours prior to boarding their plane, and that does seem to be happening most of the time. Most communities are taking 4 or 5 days to get their COVID results. With our current setup, having people come and utilize our community open testing times, we think the longest gap from somebody landing in Cordova and actually having results in hand will probably be 48 hours. At most, it will be 60 hours. So we feel like we're really meeting that state metric to offer testing to anybody when they arrive to prevent any spread of COVID in our community.
then the other question, and maybe the city manager can answer it, that are we any closer to getting a heated, insulated structure out there at the airport for the ambassadors to be in?
Where we are right now is that Alaska Airlines is allowing a minimal group of folks to greet flights inside the airport. The testing has to be done outside in a covered, heated space. And I think Dr. Sanders and the medical team has decided, mostly for personnel reasons, not to provide that testing anymore at the airport, but ask people to come into town to do that at the medical centers. So there will be no covered or heated unit out there. In fact, the Connex will be removed, I think, at the end of this month. So,
Well, if we have to revert back to that in the spring or another, wouldn't it make sense to get that while we have the funding available?
yeah, there was conversation at the IMT, and because of the nature of testing, they want a facility that allows people to come in one door and leave from another, and that they won't pass each other. And we haven't found a Connex, not a Connex, but a covered building of any kind, portable building that can do that. I think the last thing that was reported was the state has some tents that are military grade that could be used in the same way. So I know Incident Command is looking into that, and I don't think they have a final solution yet.
Councilman Guard.
I've got a question for Dr. Sanders. So once we remove testing for folks traveling in from out of state, and I understand that you said most folks who are traveling in from out of state had got the required tests, but we're still testing them once they got to town and then again within 7 to 10 days was my understanding. But how are we going to? Go ahead.
Well, right now the mandate and what will continue going forward is anybody that's traveling in from out of state has a test 72 hours prior to arrival, or can get tested on arrival and must quarantine until they have their first negative. Then they're asked to strict social distance, which is slightly different from quarantining, but very, very similar. Same idea is not going into public spaces, not using dine-in services at restaurants until they get their second negative test. And that second negative test is currently being done through our regularly scheduled community testing. So I think going forward, kind of post-silver season, what I see as the biggest impact is going to be for our local residents. When people travel, they will have to come back and quarantine in their homes until they're able to get that first negative test, which does happen pretty rapidly. And then they still have to do the strict social distance until they get that second negative, which also occurs at the regular walkthrough time.
Okay, so we're still going to be doing 2 tests after somebody arrives from out of state, be they somebody that's not local or local. You have to come in and get your 2 tests done before you're allowed to freely interact as freely as interaction happens these days in the community.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
The small caveat to that is Alaska residents are able to choose no testing and quarantine at home for 14 days if they prefer to not test.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councilman Gleason?
Yeah, I got a question for Dr. Sanders. So are you charging for those non-resident tests?
For all of our testing right now, we are collecting insurance information, and when we can, we are billing insurance. We are not billing the balance to the patient. So we feel it's important to try to capture the cost of testing as best we can and for people to utilize their insurance benefits. However, we're not balance billing any patient.
Okay.
The state does have a requirement, if you have not been tested and you are not an Alaska resident, that you pay for your testing. So those individuals are being charged through the state's travel portal.
So questions for council online, Councilman Sherman?
No questions, thank you.
Vice Mayor Meyer?
One question about flu testing for the community. Is there going to be, because this year might be more important than ever to get the flu shot, is there going to be perhaps a drive-through for residents to be able to go through and easily get a flu shot, or do you think that is an extra drive to try to get more people to get it this year?
We have definitely been talking with Blanca and trying to come up with a solution, whether we're going to do a vaccination pod or drive-through flu shots. We're still waiting on the state supply to be received and kind of looking at the numbers that we have. But absolutely, we are coming up with some kind of strategy to have a mass vaccination strategy, and we'll make sure that we get that information out to everybody once we've got it arranged.
Councilman Schaefer?
No questions, but thank you to the airport ambassadors and the medical team for all the hard work.
Then here in the meeting, Councilman Allison?
No comment, thank you.
Councilman Baylor?
Yeah, I would encourage the incident command to maybe come up with a drawing of their needs for a heated, lighted structure out there at the airport. You have the funds available, you might as well use them up on something like that if we're going to have people out there in the future. And if it's a Connex van works for you, something 20 foot, it's not a big deal to cut a couple doors in. It's not a big deal to insulate and put some lights in. We have boat builders here that can build anything. So perhaps maybe put a little drawing together and put it out locally for bid and let us know what your needs are, and maybe something can come from that. It's not something that has to be done tomorrow, obviously, since you're letting them in, but I think if we got something before the end of the year when the funds run out, it would be a worthwhile project.
So just for clarification for council, it's the council that directs the manager. So just a reminder, I've heard Councilman Baylor and I've seen nods and I've heard other council kind of discuss it, but really if that's a direction council wants, it's a fairly significant expense and financial thing. So I just suggest it's something to take up under pending agenda or have council direction, because if individual councilmen are kind of making suggestions, it starts getting confusing to the manager what their priorities are. So
Well, it's a suggestion for them to move forward. If they want to do it, they can. If they don't, then that's fine too.
okay. It's you bring up some good points, and it's come up before, so I think it's just helpful to know what the overall will of council is there. Other discussion, council, or questions for Dr. Sanders, Incident Management Team?
This is Melina. I had one more.
Vice Mayor Meyer.
I kind of just wanted to ask a little bit about, you know, we know a lot of our funds are ending, you know, by the end of the year, but this virus isn't ending because it's turning December 31st, 2020. Doesn't magically go away the next year. So how is it looking from a medical, being able to get testing, funding on the medical side for us here locally?
So right now, most of our testing has been provided from the state, and we don't have any reason to anticipate that the state is not going to be able to continue to provide us testing and cartridges. So those supply chains are opening up to the state, and we have been provided reassurance that we will continue to have that. The hospital has 2 ventilators now, 2 high-flow nasal cannulas. Our equipment has been upgraded and updated. Our oxygen supply is upgraded and updated. And I do not believe at this point we have not received any guidance from CARES money that the hospital has that it has the same timeline as the city. So we do not believe that that money has to be spent by the 31st as the city does. Our funding is different.
Thank you. That was helpful. And it's nice to know that it's different. So appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Additional questions, council? Okay, thank you, Dr. Sanders, and also thank you for taking time out of your schedule and your staff schedule to meet with Congressman Young and his staff and explain the operations there in the facility and show them the testing process there. Audience comments regarding agenda items, and we have audience participants here in the facility, and also you can call in on the call-in number. And that number again is 253-6202. We have the phone line here. Is there any?
Wants to speak here, this is the mic.
Okay, so for anyone wanting to speak in the room, and I see someone approaching, there's a remote microphone and handy wipes to sanitize it with there in the chair up there. If you want to.
He's got a call.
And we do have a call, so I'll go to the phone line. Okay, so caller, if you could please call in again, we're watching the phone here, and we have a speaker in the audience. If you could just state your name for the record and residence.
Sure, Barb Jewell, mile 2.2 Whiteshed Road, and I just wanted to add my support to Debbie Collins' letter about the work that's needed on Whiteshed Road. The work that was done a couple years ago did a really great job of improving that road right up to the part where it's the worst. And I know that was not determined by us. But now that part's just getting worse and worse and worse, and there's much more traffic out there than when I moved there 8 years ago, probably 4 times as much. The road's deteriorating pretty rapidly and getting fairly dangerous. So I appreciated Debbie and her husband writing that letter, and I would add my support to her comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So that's to communications in the packet. And just waiting to see if we have another caller. Are there other audience comments here in the room? Okay, we have a call.
Mr. Mayor?
Okay, yes, you're on the phone now. So your name and residence for the record, please. And you have 3 minutes.
Yeah, this is Greg Meyer, 1 Cannery Row. I just wanted to let you know that I'll be on the phone if you have any questions about item 16. And I also just wanted to give a shout out to the council and to the city manager and Dr. Sanders. I think you guys did a wonderful job getting us through the summer and getting all the processing done. And I just want to tell you guys thank you and good job. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so when you say stay on the line, Greg, we don't want to tie up this call-in line for the,
He's not
I
on.
think he's on the regular.
okay, on the regular line. Okay, thank you.
Yes, she is. I hear her. Kristen Carpenter.
Okay, we do have another caller on the line, so your name and residence for the record, please, and 3 minutes.
Hi, thanks, Mayor and members of the council. This is Kristen Carpenter, and I asked to address you at tonight's meeting so I could introduce myself over the phone, obviously, as the newest staff person for the Prince William Sound Economic Development District. And I know you're familiar with the EDD because it's been around for several decades, and I hope you think of the organization as a resource for the city of Cordova. My understanding of the organization's role, taking my still newbie status into account, is that we are charged with supporting the region's businesses and with working as a partner with each of the Sound's communities to help implement your community economic development priorities. And so, for example, I've so far been involved in some conversations with a few folks, prospective partners in town, about the possibility of a cold storage facility, which has been talked about for years. But it would be great to see if we could get that going out at the airport. So that would be one example. And I look forward to helping with other projects however we can, if it's with grant writing assistance or research on funding sources or providing project planning support. We can do all of those things. Some of the topics that are at the top of our list for Prince William Sound include the Alaska Marine Highway System reform efforts, COVID-19 response to help small businesses, and working with partners in the region to catalyze mariculture in Prince William Sound. And the specific focus on that has been a lot of interest in kelp farming for the region. It seems like there's huge potential for that in Prince William Sound. And so I would also like to invite you to the Prince William Sound Economic Development District's annual meeting, which we are scheduling for November 12th. We'll have a lineup of topics that I think should be of great interest to all the communities in the Sound. At the annual meeting, we'll be talking about the launch of our Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, or CEDS. You'll hear that term a lot. Our CEDS process, which involves writing a 5-year strategic plan for economic development for the Prince William Sound region, kind of like a big comprehensive plan for the Sound. I know you all are familiar with that process. And we want to be sure that this process is as inclusive as possible so that you'll be hearing lots about this in terms of outreach from us as we move forward with the CEDS. We're also, at the annual meeting, going to be hearing from a group called the EVOS Think Tank of Citizens. I think you all are either going to be hearing from them also, but it's a group of regional leaders that's proposing to reconfigure how the remaining EVOS consent decree funds are spent. And the idea is that rather than continue on the path of completely spending down the remaining funds under direction from the trustee council, this think tank is proposing to create an endowment of the remaining funds under the umbrella of the Alaska Community Foundation and allow long-term spending for research and habitat restoration and protection. And you can hear more about that in our annual meeting. And finally, if you haven't done this already, I really want to encourage everyone listening, the council, everyone else in the room, people on the phone, to participate in the 2020 census. You can do it online. Go to 2020census.gov to participate. It's super easy. You don't need a special code. And it's critical to Alaska because it's how funding is allocated for hundreds of federal programs. And so far, Alaska ranks last in U.S. Census responses that don't involve census takers making personal visits. It takes 10 minutes to answer 10 questions or 10 years of funding. So please go to 2020census.gov if you haven't already. It's really important that Alaska be included in this count. And thanks a lot for your time, and I look forward to working with the city of Cordova. I'm happy to answer any questions or let you move on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kristen. Appreciate that report on the Prince William Sound Economic Development District. We have other audience comments. Okay, hearing none, chairpersons and representatives of boards and commissions, CCMC Authority Board. We may have
This is Hannah Sanders again.
Dr. Sanders, thank you. Go ahead, please.
So the hospital continues to work on COVID operations. We are working right now on our strategic plan and trying to look back at the community health assessment that was done in 2019 and start looking forward to how we can better address some of those community needs that are lacking. The other significant thing that's happened with the hospital in the last week is we got our 2019 audit completed. So we will be reviewing that with the auditor company on Thursday, the 24th, with our board. So anybody that wants to call into that meeting, certainly that will be available to the public. There was an audit finding that CCMC lacks internal controls of only having one accountant on staff. So the same person that is entering is also reviewing the monthly financials. With 2020 and the significant financial impacts that have been brought from the CARES funding and the pandemic, we are really working to make sure that we address this audit finding and have our records in really good shape for our audit next year. So I think the copy was provided to the city as well so that you guys can complete the 2019 audit. I think we got that over to you today. So any questions?
Any questions, Council? Okay, not hearing any. Thank you, Dr. Sanders, for that report. School board.
Darn, you cleaned it for nothing.
I don't have too much new to report other than now all students have had the opportunity to be in school in person at this point. Our last cohort of students are going for the first time this week. And then next week, all students will be in person, not all day. They'll be switching off morning and afternoons. But, you know, the community has come together to create a really safe space for returning to in-person school. And what I hear from the students that I've spoken to and the parents that I've spoken to and the staff that I've spoken to, that it's going well. People are happy. We're certainly identifying areas that we want to do better in, but the students are happy to be back in school. And the parents and staff are happy to have them back in school. We restarted some of the extracurricular activities this week. There were some, or last weekend this week. There were some in-person player and student meetings that we do every year at the beginning of the year to go over handbook rules and things like that. And they are starting up practices in accordance with the state and deed regulations for safe extracurricular activities.
Okay, thank you. Questions, Council? Okay, thank you. I think you answered the main one we've had on our minds, school attendance. So any other reports? Did we have another call come in that we missed? Okay. And we don't have the student council representative yet. That may be a little later in the process this year. So approval of the consent calendar, there's 3 items. Does council want to set any of those aside? Okay, hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Melina Meyer,
Yes.
Jeff Guard,
Yes.
Ann Schaefer,
Yes.
Dave Gleason,
Yes.
Tom Baylor,
Yes.
Kathy Sherman,
Yes.
David Allison.
Yes.
Consent calendar's approved.
Okay, thank you. Considerations of bids, we don't have any. So reports of officers. My mayor's report, council had asked me to reach out to lobbyist Bitney. We've both been out harvesting our moose, and so I'll be executing that here pretty quick to get some feedback on dialogue with the state on making sure that our Tier 1 grant match funding is a priority from Cordova, and just a process for making sure we keep that in front of the administration. The other item was the council had asked for Prince William Sound RCAC report from our representative. I did not have that opportunity to reach out. Okay, and tonight didn't work.
No, sorry. He's formulating a written report that he'll get me for next time.
Okay, okay, great, thank you. That's about all I had at this time, unless there's any questions. Okay, city manager's report.
There's a written report in the packet, which I'm happy to answer any questions about. I did want to add a couple of things. As you know, we're back in City Hall, and it's been going really well. We have an ambassador at the front desk between 10 and 4 every day, checking people and making sure that folks that enter City Hall and engage in the library, the museum, or in business with City are safe and comfortable. So we're open, and we've hosted a few meetings here. There are more meetings that are scheduled in City Hall, and we feel very well prepared to handle that. Second thing, we are beginning our budget process for 2021. We will schedule some work sessions on that in the next month or so. And the audit is within a week or so of being done. Our audit is combined with the school district, the hospital. So now that their audit is completed, ours will quickly be done, and we'll make sure you get the results of that. And I also just want to reiterate what Kristen Carpenter said around the census. It is so critical to our community that we have as close to 100% participation in the census as we possibly can. And we're not even at 50%. So we really, really, really need to engage, ask your friends, ask your neighbors to make sure that the census is filled out. It's very easy, can be done online. And I just want to encourage participation. That's it.
Helen, you want to?
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh my gosh, sorry. And Sam is here. I want to let her speak to a recent award that one of our departments got.
Okay, so in the packet is the award that our incredibly awesome water department got again. So they have received that award numerous times. I have to read this because I don't want to forget anything. So the department consists of 5 dedicated, hardworking individuals: Joel Felix, who's the supervisor, Daniel Adahar, Joseph, see, I practice, now I'm going to mess it up, Cison, Ronald Adahar, and Everett Hunter. So this group, these 5 people provide all the safe drinking water for Cordova, and they manage all the waste. So there's a sewer department as well. They maintain the system, repair leaks, monitor their systems 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. In their spare time, they do continuing education to maintain their certificates, which all of them have to go and take a state test and pass. There's 4 certificates and 2, for our type of system, 2 levels. This recognition and award from the state is very well deserved by these guys. We're pretty lucky to have such a dedicated, hardworking crew that keeps our drinking water safe, and I think if you guys happen to see them out on the street, you should give them an attaboy, because they put some time in. They work hard, and they have a very critical job. No water? Not good.
Thank you. And on behalf of council, congratulations. Any questions for city manager? Councilman Baylor?
Yeah, I think I probably had more calls the last month about the junk cars out here, so I think it would be helpful for the community to hear what's going on, why are these sitting there, what are we doing with the lot that we currently have that's kind of just turned into a junkyard? Can we not move them out there? What's the issues, what's the plan moving forward? So.
Sure, and that was one of the things that was brought up in the survey, and Nate and I have talked about that, and he actually said, we've already got a solution, so I'll let him speak to that.
All right, thank you for your question on that. And yeah, as I stated before, and I'll reiterate for the council, there is a plan in place to make our current impound lot that we've had since I got here a secure lot. And part of the reasoning for that it needs to be a secure lot is some of the vehicles that we have located in front of our police department right now are the result of a crime, and they have to be preserved as evidence of that crime. And since that location that we have them at now is on camera, we can keep an eye on them, and our current impound lot wasn't a secure place where we could guarantee nobody would vandalize them. So we're working on a plan to have that quoted out so that we can have a secure lot that's gated, locked, and lit, that we can leave all the vehicles in until we get ready to dispose of them.
And then the other question I had is the investment committee, is that moving forward?
Yes, Ken, do you want to speak to that?
Yes, I've contacted an individual, an actuary who is willing to consult for us or give us advice. I've also reached out to the mayor today to see if he had any individuals for that.
Good.
Other questions, council? Councilman Schaefer, you're coming across a little quiet. Sorry, but if you,
I'm sorry.
that's much better.
Better? I'm on the headset.
Much better.
Okay. Move the microphone a little bit. First of all, good job and thank you to the water department. That's awesome. My question for the census is, I know there was some confusion about if you'd filled out the census without an online ID, if it was counted or not, and it sounds like that got resolved. And even if you didn't have an online ID or a census ID, census still counted if you did it online. But to increase participation, would it make sense to set up a booth, maybe an outdoor booth or something, so that residents could go to the census taker instead of just doing it online? I know there's someone or two people running around town trying to get census information from people. And so if there was a centralized location, or I don't know if this is something that we could collaborate with the Native Village on, but just getting our participation up seems like a really important priority.
I can address at least a piece of that. The Native Village NEAC and the city have teamed up together to work on getting the word out. NVE is working directly with their members to make sure that they're part of the census. So I'm not sure if we can identify how their membership is reporting and responding, but NVE is actively working on that. And then in terms of a location, now that we're open again, I've reached out to the census regional office to say we could easily host census takers here at City Hall in the front and make that available as a location. So I haven't heard back from them yet, but they know that's a possibility.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for doing that.
Councilman Allison?
Yeah, I'm just not so sure about their census system. I'll give you my example. I filled it out online before I had a number and put in my current address, what I think is my address anyway, and acted like everything was good. And then the census taker came around the block and I told her I've already filled it out. And she said, well, I'll check on it and get back to you if it hasn't. Well, the next day I had a card in my car with a new number on it to go back in and fill it out. Well, that card had the wrong address still, so I filled it out. So I did the survey with that number, with the wrong address, and then I called them to say, now I filled it out twice, 7 people with a wrong address and a right address, with your number and without your number, and is that all cool, or do I need a number with my right address on it, or, oh, you filled it out a couple times, it should be good. So I'm assuming it's in there at least once, maybe twice, but I think that their 50% may not be right either. But I guess my point is, if you filled it out early on, it may not have taken, and I think maybe we should just tell everybody to fill it out again, whether they have or not, and make sure we get those numbers up. So,
Councilman Baylor?
Yeah, and I forgot to mention too on the water department, as a contractor, I've worked with Joel and that crew down there on several projects. and they are outstanding to work with. They are very knowledgeable. They want to help you. We had a project last year that it was a big project replacing a water line, and along with the SAM and the water department, they got it figured out and got it fixed, and it really affected like 4 homes back in there. So I just thank you to the water department. They do a very good job.
Other questions for manager, council?
This is Melina.
Melina.
Not really a question for the manager, but kind of picking off of Councilmember Allison, I'm too in that same boat. I filled it out twice. Census takers have come around my house twice. I've got a notice of visit, so my 5th interaction with the census, and that census ID didn't work. So my next step is to call them with it. So I too am a little concerned about the 50% and what that actually means. Because I don't know whether I'm counted or not. I've done it twice online. Census workers didn't have it. I know my address is probably part of the problem, and I know that a lot of people in Cordova do that too. But so I think having a central location where you can go to a census worker to check on things, I think that would be helpful, and having the Cordova Center at that spot might be a good one. And I know you've reached out to them to offer that space, so there's not much we can do on that, but I'm getting a little concerned about the census when I felt like I was prepared and knew how to fill it out, and it's a challenge. So I don't really know too much to say about it, but it's important to fill it out, so I encourage people to go online and fill it out, and hopefully people can get this resolved, and hopefully everybody in Cordova gets counted.
And I just want to add is that one of the confusions there seems to be is that the addresses that we have here and the addresses that the Census Bureau has are not always consistent. And I'll give an example. A number of years ago, our house on Council Avenue is 207 Council Avenue, but my husband put up a plaque that identified it as the Alva Ames house that was built in 1911. And the Census Bureau had 1911 as the address. So I think from what I understand from the folks I've chatted with in the Census Bureau is that there's been some addressing issues. So if your address is 202 Council Ave in real life, but they have 201 Council Ave, they're looking for 202 and 201 as 2 separate addresses, even though they don't exist. So I agree with Councilman Allison that there's some confusion out there. But my understanding is that if you filled out your application, your census online, whether or not you had a number, it has been recorded. But, yeah, vote once, vote twice, vote 10 times, get it right, right?
Well, I snail mailed mine several weeks ago. I'm just hoping the Postal Service got it to them.
Oh, stop it. You can open another.
So, other questions for manager, council?
This is Melina again.
Vice Mayor Meyer.
I'm kind of curious now that Alaska's turnout number is, it's really our addressing problem. And I don't think Cordova is unique to the addressing problem. I think Alaska is probably the state that has the hardest addressing and has an addressing problem of matching it up. And I can bring this up at pending agenda, but I do think it's something that we should reach out to our representatives in DC, because this is a federal problem. And we've been talking about addressing in Cordova for a really long time, that we need proper addressing. And this is in case kind of one of the main reason why, because we don't have addressing, and it affects even the census happening. So I'll bring it up in pending agenda, but I just kind of wanted to add that in.
Okay, thank you, Vice Mayor Meyer. Other questions for City Manager? Okay, before we go to the City Clerk's report, I'm just going to revert to Mayor's report for a minute. You reminded me of something. Postal Service Council had asked about if we could write a letter of support for maintenance of the local facility, and I did meet with the postmaster, and she provided, the maintenance supervisor for Alaska's information. So if that's a consensus, council wants to go ahead and get out a city letter requesting, maintenance resources for our local post office. I'll go ahead with that. So with no objection, I'll move that direction. And then I also just want to mention I have participated in a couple of the Prince William Sound Economic Development District meetings, and it's excellent that we have that access. And again, this is the first time in 20 years of my memory that we've had the executive director, which is Kristen Carpenter now, that actually lives within our region. And I've seen the immediate impacts and engagement there. So really appreciate that opportunity and the manager's facilitation of that application and subsequent appointment. So city clerk's report.
I just have a couple of things we'll talk about at pending agenda. It's looking like a busy fall getting to be for council stuff. Helen has a few work sessions scheduled for the next few weeks, so we'll talk about dates for like that training coming up September 30th, and then the next couple of work sessions that she has plans for. Still looking at Title II, and we have 2 weeks between regular meetings, so that'll definitely be on the October meetings, the new Title II, which is our election code that Holly got for us. We've been answering a lot of questions about elections for the state election, the general election coming up in November for citizens, and directing them to the state's website and other resources to get their questions answered. And I think I emailed you recently that I've been taking a little time here and there to help with when school was home, when my youngest son was home doing 9th grade. And I agree with Barb Jewell, and I think it has been going pretty smoothly. I'm very happy about it. I thank the teachers and the staff at CHS and the administration for all getting it done pretty safely. And it's exciting to be doing algebra again. And Harmony helped me out with a few equations earlier. That's all I have to report. Oh, sorry, the assessing contract is on here. Hoping to get that approved tonight, and they're going to have a plan to come at the very end of September and early October. They're following the protocols for for travel, if any of them are traveling in, and they will be in the office, but using all the same protocols and following the rules for the Cordova Center. And that's all.
Questions, council? Okay, thank you. Hearing no questions. Correspondence is noted in the packet. Any council comments?
Yeah, this is Selena.
Vice Mayor Meyer.
I did want to comment about the Collins letter about Whiteshed. I think that we've gotten a few of these letters about Whiteshed. I believe also from the Collins, and I think every time we pretty much commented about it. And I believe staff reached out to the state to try to get some caution signs, some markers saying 1 lane ahead, flashing lights, something. And so I guess I'm just going to reiterate that personally, I would like to see staff reach out again. I think that we need to make a maybe more of an effort. I don't know what we need to do if council needs to write a letter, if our mayor needs to write a letter, but it is a really dangerous spot. It's been a concern for a number of years, and it is just getting worse and worse and worse. And it needs to say that it's a 1 lane. It's not 2 lanes. It's hardly even a lane and a half. It's a 1 lane road right there, and there's no indication of it. It's on a blind spot. It's really an accident waiting to happen, and I want to catch these things and do everything we can to prevent an accident there, because that would be devastating, and it's just really terrible.
Okay, Councilman Gleason.
That's a DOT road, right?
That's correct.
So I think that's who we need to get a hold of. I think we've already done that once. This is the second letter they've written. But I think if we're gonna do something, that's who we have to push on.
Could we forward this letter over to Robert Dunning, I think, as a maintenance supervisor in Valdez for our district? And we can get his contact information. Or Helen, did you or staff have anything to add?
I don't know, Sam, do you have?
Is that getting cleaned in between? Because I'm not, okay. You have to push and hold red till it's on. Or not. There you go.
Okay, so since I talked with Debbie, I contacted DOT Northern Region Planner April, who has helped me with all the grant work and everything. She did submit a hazard mitigation grant to fix that rock slide area and that corner or the guardrail. It was not awarded. She does have drawings and plans and everything to make it happen. So that's awesome. And she will share those with us. I don't really have a source for a grant right now, but she's looking, and I'm going to contact Sean O'Brien at MVE. And I also talked to Pam, somebody at DOT in Fairbanks, that's a person who can maybe help us with some signage. So I'm waiting to see. I don't know. I mean, I'll see what she says. If we hit a wall, maybe we can try to get a resolution or something going. But I could certainly email that letter to Robert. If that's
Yeah, I don't know
what
if
you would
that's the
like.
right path. Maybe I should retract that. It's really not a maintenance issue. It's more of a construction issue, probably. But yeah, if that was helpful. Thank you. Did Sam, just because I heard the drillers were in town, were they doing geotechnical drilling out there for that corner? Do you know, or?
No, they were doing it for the Whiteshed pedestrian bike path.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood.
Yeah, I don't think they went out to that corner, but they have, because she wrote a grant with a fix. So they did invest some money into it, but that's been not this last time.
Okay, thank you. Other questions or comments on the correspondence? Okay, hearing none. We have ordinance and resolutions. The first one is item 13. Again, I'll read the resolution, but of course I'm not going to speak to it, and I do have a conflict, as I mentioned. Resolution 09-20-35 is a resolution of the Council of the City of Cordova, Alaska, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Appraisal Company of Alaska for assessment services for tax year 2021 in the amount of $18,000.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt. Councilman Gard, would you like to speak to your motion?
It's a contract that comes up every year. The dollars are in line with what we've historically paid, give or take a little bit. I don't see it being out of line, so I think we just need to get it done.
Councilman Allison, to your second.
Necessary evil, it's in the budget, so.
And then council comments in the order on my list. Councilman Schaefer.
No further comments.
Councilman Sherman.
No, I'm in favor of the resolution.
Councilman Baylor.
No, I'm not going to support it. I think last year the mistakes that were made, and they're really slow on the uptake to correct them. And there was another mistake made that didn't get caught. It was a math mistake, and it was actually a sitting councilman, he wasn't here at the time, that cost him some money, and I don't know how many other mistakes would be there. So I thought they did kind of a sloppy job on some of that. They didn't have very good response when they were contested, and like I said, they were almost confused. We almost had to work him through it to get one of the applicants to get it resolved, and it was quite a difference in money to get it resolved. So I think it's time that we maybe have somebody else come in and take a fresh look.
Councilman Meyer.
Taking back on Councilor Baylor a little bit, what's the process to find a new assessor? Is different assessors in Alaska. How do we pick which company to go with on a staff level?
I'll direct that towards the city clerk.
I think there might be 2 contract assessors in the state. If you look at the page from the, what's it called? The state report there, it talks about Canary. Oh no, maybe 3.
4.
Maybe 3 total. The other 2, I think, mostly do southeast. I mean, we could certainly put out an RFP and see what we get. As far as for the number of parcels we have and their experience with our parcels and the fact that they have a local employee, it all adds up to be that it would be, I don't know, kind of hard to get somebody new. Certainly, we couldn't do it at this time of year. So I would say at budget time, if that is something council wants to do, it would be smart to bring that up then for the following year. But the normal, normally we approve the contract. I would say usually it's a month or so earlier than this, we'll approve the one for the following year. But maybe COVID or whatever, we're a little bit late. But their intent is to start doing work for the 2021 year this fall. We're supposed to be completed, the assessing by January 1st of the year. So they kind of need to do it in the fall.
Okay, thank you for that. That's some background information. That's helpful. I will be supporting this, and then I wrote it down for pending agenda. I don't think it's a bad idea for us to, or maybe I'll just make a note of it because it's kind of the wrong time of year, or maybe during budget time we can bring that up as how we get assessor and if we need to go out to RFP. I think it's good to look. We've had the same one for a long time, and I have some of the same concerns that Taylor had. I think there was a couple big kind of issues with the last assessor, and I don't know if that's just within their own company. Maybe they can assign someone else to do that in part with us, but I think it's worth looking into. But I'll support it. I think we have to get it done now, and don't have time to change. So thanks.
Councilman Gleason?
Yeah, I guess I would ask, when he says no major changes, does that mean he's gonna resubmit what he did in 20 except for new construction? Is that pretty much what the only changes he would have to make?
There are a lot of leased properties that the possessory interest on leased properties change each year because they're at a different part of the term of their lease. So those all get looked at. Any building permits get looked at. Any new plats that have been done have to be, new cards have to be created for that. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, not as much work, I would say, as when you're doing an across-the-board 5% or 10% or something like that.
I was just wondering if we can pay him a little less because he's not doing much, but I don't know much about how that contract works as far as how they come up with a number for 18,000. Do they bid this? Do they send you a number, or do we just tell them that's what we're going to pay him?
They send a number. I've tried to negotiate with him in the past. I've tried to get 2-year contracts sometimes. He wasn't interested because he doesn't always know how the sales ratio comes in each year until he can analyze more sales. And then if the sales ratio number comes in really low and the state assessor gets upset and wants us to, get closer to 100%, which is what we're supposed to be, 100% of market value. That's why he doesn't like to do 2 years in a row, 2-year contract, because then he wouldn't know if 2022 we come in at 75% and we should, maybe relook at industrial or relook at some part of residential or something. So 18's reasonable if you look at what other cities are paying for more
I saw
parcels.
that. I looked at that.
Yeah, and then
Some
if,
pretty
I
big
think my
numbers
memo
some of those
talks
guys.
about what we've paid in the past 17 last year. Maybe that we were under for last year if they did more work. And then 20 and 19. I mean, it's reasonable. It's,
Well, I'm with Tom on the mistake that was made last year. That caused a lot of trouble for one person, and it was a $20,000 math mistake. So, anyways, we have to do this now. We budgeted for it, and we need the guy, so I'll agree to it. But I do think we need to at least see what else is out there.
Okay, any additional discussion? Councilman Baylor?
Yeah, I guess just a question. So it sounds like we basically just been sole sourcing this contract. Is that nothing we can do? It seems like we haven't gone out to bids on any of this over the years, so we just kind of hand it to them.
I can't remember the last time we went out for proposals, but I believe we have since I've been the clerk, so within the last 10 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would agree that maybe that resolution isn't written as a sole source and maybe it should be. I can look into rewording it or doing it a different way, but obviously if the direction will be an RFP down the road, that's doable. We'll see what else is out there.
Any additional discussion, council? Okay, roll call vote, please.
David Gleason,
Yes.
Ann Schaefer,
Yes.
Tom Baylor,
No.
Kathy Sherman,
Yes.
Jeff Guard,
Yes.
David Allison,
Yes.
Melina Meyer.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-1.
Okay, resolution 09-20-36 is a resolution of the Council of the City of Cordova, Alaska, establishing an economic stimulus program to mitigate the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic on the community of Cordova.
Move to approve.
Second.
I'm sorry, Councilman Sherman.
She was seconding.
I was the second.
Okay, we had a second here. Had a motion, Gleason, second, Baylor. Would you like to speak to your motion, Councilman Gleason?
Yeah, I'm in favor of this. I think our community has suffered quite a bit with people not being able to work right after the COVID started, and I only wish $1 million went a little farther.
Councilman Baylor, to your second.
Yeah, as long as we're not cutting ourselves short on other things that we need, I'm in favor of it.
Then council discussion in order. Vice Mayor Meyer.
I don't have any comments on it right now.
Councilman Allison.
Yeah, I support it. I just have some concerns about the verification of residency, and hopefully we've got a robust plan there and we don't end up with 5,000 people in Cordova. Maybe they should fill out a census thing before they can qualify for it. But just make sure we advertise good and we don't end up having 5,000 people in town. Do a good verification, but I think it'll be good to spread that money around and to require it to be spent in town. I think that's a good plan.
Councilman Sherman.
I agree with Councilman Allison. I think they should have to fill out the census before they get their money. I'm in favor of it.
Councilman Guard.
I wholeheartedly agree with the census verification portion of it. But yeah, I'm in favor of the program.
I did not hear that as an amendment. Councilman Schaefer.
I'm also in favor.
Okay, it sounds like we're ready for a vote. Roll call, please.
Jeff Guard,
Yes.
Melina Meyer,
Yes.
David Gleason,
Yes.
Kathy Sherman,
Yes.
David Allison,
Yes.
Ann Schaefer,
Yes?
Tom Baylor.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, and under new business, direction to staff regarding possible charter change as a ballot proposition for the March 2nd, 2021 regular city election. Okay, City Clerk, would you like to speak to this? Or?
Well, sure. It's been mentioned now a few times, but I need a clear will of the body and a vote to actually, have Holly write the resolution with ballot language to put it on if that is what you want. It's a little confusing because 519 is not completely well worded, or it's just a confusing piece of charter. And maybe we don't know what the founders were thinking when they wrote it exactly. So I guess you guys get to decide what you're thinking if you want to rewrite it, at least, and put it before the voters. So I gave a few, well, I didn't really give options. I said, if maybe there's a generic kind of, yes, we're interested in putting it on, and then you can have a little discussion and Holly will capture how you feel and see if she can put it in ballot language. It's for you guys to decide.
Councilman Ellison.
To get the discussion going, I guess I would move that we direct the staff to bring forward a resolution placing a charter change on the ballot for March 2nd, 2021, regular city election.
Sherman, I'll second.
Okay, have a
Mayor, I don't know if I should be, I'm sitting here wondering if I should just declare a perceived conflict here or not, because it's kind of a.
just because of related party.
Well, I'm a contractor and I'm trying to get the rules lightened or changed. I wouldn't say lightened. I don't know. I just throwing it out there for the record.
Councilman Ellison.
Yeah, I would, regarding the conflict, I would say that the potential is for all of us to have a conflict at some point in time, but, just because we're bringing forth a charter change, everybody's gonna get a chance to vote on it, and that doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna get a contract just because the wording even gets changed, so I don't see a conflict.
I would tend to agree unless there's any other council disagreement, because also council turns over and changes and new conflicts based on the city's services and stuff might arise, so.
All we're trying to do is clarify rules for how we deal with it. We're not trying to lighten rules or anything. We're just trying to.
I just want it on the record.
Yeah.
So then I can speak to it.
I appreciate that. So, Councilman Ellison, to your motion.
Yeah, I guess I support clearing up the language, and I guess I've always been of the opinion for all of these things, I guess. It's a small community. There's only a certain number of people that'll sign up for boards, only a certain number of people that can do any one thing. We're trying to get some COVID projects done before 12/31, and we don't have enough contractors in town to do it. I myself, over the course of 30 years at both here and the co-op, have volunteered my services because we had rules like this where I couldn't sign a contract, but yet, you're in an office and they need help, and so you provide help. I mean, it's what we do as people. So I don't think we should be restricting management to any, eliminated somebody that might be the best person for the job or might be the only person for the job from having the capability. And as we saw here a month or two ago, or whenever we approved the last one, there's ways around the rules. So why don't we make the rules fit rather than having to come back and approve something after the fact when it would have been fine just to set it. And ultimately, with this, it's a charter, so the public is going to be the ones that decide. whether it's right or not, but we certainly ought to at least give them the opportunity to choose the best person for the job, or the only person for the job in some cases, so.
Councilman Sherman, to your second.
Yes, I agree with Councilman Allison. I think because we are a small community and we only have a limited pool to draw from in some cases, that I think it's good to address it in that fashion. And again, that's what I was going to say. It's up to the people of the community to vote on this. So I think it should be, we should provide that opportunity.
And Councilman Baylor, did you have a discussion?
Yeah, I guess that, that's in here now. It's, as long as there's an invitation to submit sealed bids is published, and my understanding is any contractor, if they're on council, they can bid. If they get the bid in an open bid process, then it's perfectly legit. I think what this is trying to avoid is city manager handing out jobs or purchase agreements with just council without any public input on it. So, and I think I said it once before, I'm on the city representative for PISVAC board, and at the time I was doing work for them, and I spoke to their lawyers, who they're very good lawyers. And they said, well, when it comes around time to vote to pass the budget, said you raise your hand and excuse yourself from that vote. So now you haven't voted to spend that money, so now you've kind of eliminate your conflict there. So there's ways around it, but I support the change in this. There's sometimes that you need just a little thing, maybe it's computer help, or it could be almost anything. And that being said, I'll be working on the hospital tomorrow, but I'll be working for a contractor that got the bid. So, that'll be subcontracting from him. So, yeah, as long as the public knows what's going on, I think that's the main intent that everybody wants. There's no sweetheart deals, which I don't think there has been.
And then,
years.
Okay, thank you. Then procedurally, Susan, if we're lining up for the election, what's kind of the timelines?
Well, we're about to change the timelines when we change that new Title
That's
II.
right.
But this is timely enough that if I think I can take this to Holly and get you back a resolution soon enough to be able to make the March 2nd, 2021 election.
Okay, and then council discussion in order. Councilman Gard?
I do think we need to restructure this because we are a small community, like everybody said. But I don't think we need to take all the safeguards out of it. I don't think we've had any problems that I'm aware of in the past. But as we see on a federal and state level, there's so much of the populace that has so little faith in their government right now. We do not want to put our local government in that same kind of pool. So we want to have a system that all our citizenry figures is safe and fair for the way their officials operate. So where that fine line is, I don't know, but we do need to restructure it.
Okay, well, good point. And that's what I heard in the motion, is to clarify, but not necessarily change the intent or the content. And I think I heard the clerk say that too. So, okay. Vice Mayor Meyer.
Yeah, thank you. I agree with pretty much everything that's been said. Because, now as first reading this, it's like I feel conflicted about it because it seems like to me the intent is, to be really open and honest and not have people elected serving self-interest and serving the interests of the community as a whole. But we are a small community, and sometimes, we're the people that are available, or, we have a lot of boards and commissions and who falls under what. I think it definitely needs clearing up, and maybe a process to, during meetings, you can say your conflict of interest or disclose being a part of something, but, maybe we can have some kind of paper trail that someone fills out something or part of the bid. I don't really know, but it does need to be, the intent needs to be there so that people aren't running for offices to serve their self-interest. So having it reworded and a little more clear is, I think, definitely needed.
Sorry, you were finished?
I was.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Schaefer.
Yeah, thank you. I agree with a lot of what's been said. I think it does need to be clarified, but we want to make it could be kind of a slippery slope, so we want to make sure there are those safeguards there that, you know, someone on council isn't getting all the projects. So I will be supporting this.
Councilman Gleason?
Yeah, those words slippery slope are pretty important because I'd like to see what the rewrite on this would look like. I mean, it's pretty specific to me right now, and it was a very specific situation that we were in when we had the bathrooms or the harbor sinks built. So, you know, I'd be in favor of it as long as it's not written in a way that's gonna upset the entire town, you know?
I think that, and the council gets a chance to, they approve what goes on the ballot, right?
Yes. So, so far with this conversation, it's going to be hard to determine exactly what to write, but I mean, I'll let Holly tackle it, listen to this, tackle it, and then the amendments can be made when it's in front of you.
Okay, and that was my question, if you felt like you had enough to move forward with. Okay.
I'm glad it's on YouTube.
All right, Councilman Guard.
I had thought as we started down this, and I may have misunderstood, but had we talked about maybe doing a work session or something so we could figure out, you know, spend more than 2 minutes on this to say, yes, we want to do it, but have a work session to figure out kind of what our intent is, so we had some guidance for Holly to come up with something?
I would agree that I would want her in the room, I would say, or on the line to listen to more, but possibly a part of a work session would be a bad idea.
Councilman Baylor, then Gleason.
Yeah, well, let me just give you an example of how this can, I don't know how we want to word it, but how it can help. I mean, quite often Sam calls me with some questions, you know, on projects, construction end of it, and I don't charge her for that, but we have discussions. I've even gone out there and helped her, and Don Shosta's done the same thing, and I'm sure you'll do the same, and we're all happy to do that. But there was another project that Melvin called me on, and it's a lean-to shed on the back of the hospital building. He said, I don't have a lot of money in my budget. I want to do the work. Can you come basically show me how to do this? So I spent, I don't know, 15 hours or something like that working, get paid for it, working and say, all right, this is what we'll do, and show him how to do it, help him do it. And then I got him far enough along that him and the other maintenance workers got this thing done. So it saved the hospital a lot of money. They got their enclosed tractor shed and everything else. So it's not like you're, you know, we all help and volunteer and counsel and do other things, but it does come to a point, if you're going to spend 15, 20 hours with a hammer and something like that, you are going to probably want to get paid for that. But those are little minor things, and you can probably get by with that if the staff would have put out, you know, give me your rates for consulting, or give me your rates for carpentry work, and, you know, you compile a list, and if there's 3 people that are charging X amount of dollars an hour, then you 1, 2, 3, you kind of rotate that. But then at least it would meet, to me, it would meet that satisfaction of being out to the public, almost like an on-call list. And it could be for computers or for other things if you have your list. What are your rates to help us? And maybe that's just a simpler way to get around this, because it's not like they're handing out, you know, $1 million projects here. It's a help out here and it's a help out there. In the case of the sinks, it was like, we just need to get this done. And so that might be, maybe we don't even have to change the code. Maybe we look at that scenario as have a contractor list or have a janitor list or whatever you think you're going to be needing. If that meets the criteria, it was an open process. And if I'm $75 and the guy is $60, well, then you give it to the guy that's $60. It's kind of just throwing it out there as another option, and rather than having to change this.
Councilman Gleason, and then, and you've had 2 chances. I want to go to others online.
I actually had a question for you, but I cannot remember what it was. Sorry.
Screwed you up, sorry.
Well, I remember now. So it sounds to me like we need to have a work session before we vote on something like what we're about to vote on, right?
So that's an option. The motion on the floor is to direct the clerk to approach the attorney to clarify this, and that would just take a motion to, you know, I guess how would we procedurally to move it to pending agenda? I guess Councilman Allison made the motion.
I thought what the clerk had asked for was some specific direction from council on a direction we wanted to go. We've talked about this half a dozen times and hasn't gone anywhere, and the clerk needed a consensus from council on doing something other than just talking about it some more. And I think a workshop is good, but I think we need something to workshop on other than, you know, more of the same conversation we're having right now. We need something, a proposal to do something with.
Okay, I'm trying to keep track here. I think we've had 3 of you speak to it twice already. Is there any councilman online? And then Councilman Guard. Councilman Guard.
I think all we did was made a motion to approve. We didn't say when she had to go off and talk to Holly to get this started. What we did was made a motion to initiate.
Speak into the mic, please.
We made a motion to initiate the process to start changing this piece of code. If what we need to speak to Holly to get her to start writing this piece of code is some more information, that doesn't mean that we can't have a work session before then to figure out where we want to put whatever we want for safeguards on this. But I mean, we do have a small pool of people to work with here. And there are times that we're going to need to get Baylor down to fix something in the harbor in the middle of our next pandemic or something because he's the only one available, and we don't want to have preclusions from that or have to do a mea culpa after the fact thing to say we're okay. So whatever we think we'd like to have for safeguards to keep us in the lane, we can come up with. But I don't know that we're going to do it here off the hip. So I'd be in favor of having a workshop on this.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor, so before council votes on it, we could table it until after work session? Is that, I'm trying to get it, I'm kind of getting lost with where we're going with this.
I don't know.
Councilman Allison.
I don't want to have a workshop without a proposal in front of me. So that, I think we're just spinning our wheels some more and we're going to be.
Yeah, so that's the motion, and it's a chicken and egg thing here, to have something in front of you before you can discuss it, and then to discuss it before you get something in front of you. So, but the motion and second was to submit it to Susan and come back with Holly for some options maybe to clean this up, and then maybe have a work session that Holly can participate in to get more detailed feedback from council. Is that your intent, Councilman Allison?
Correct.
Okay. Councilman Guard.
One more question. So if we got to get something in front of us to look at to work on, we can't be the only community in Alaska that's had this issue. My guess, it would not be the first time that Holly's had to work on this. So if there's kind of some generic boilerplate stuff out there that other communities are using for this, that we could get from them without getting a bunch of lawyer time involved in it and a big bill, if we could get them to cough up something like that, we could look at it, we could have our little workshop, we could see where we wanted to go from there. And down the pike we could go without having much invested in it.
Yeah. You know, I think that's the usual process, actually, is kind of not reinvent the wheel right at an early stage. So I think that's maybe a couple or 3 samples in alternatives.
Well, but it's charter, and it would be a ballot prop before the people, so it can't be some, oh, maybe this will fly. It's got to be written by our attorney.
No,
but not for a work session. It can certainly be something less formal for a work session. So I think I feel like I know what you want. But now I'm getting worried about when we get to pending agenda, how I said we were full up with work sessions. So now I'm getting worried that it won't be ready for, but possibly we'll solve it without needing a ballot prop if things like this come up at a work session, that, like Baylor mentioned.
Okay, so we can take another bite at the schedule in the workshop, but right now, just the motion in front of you is to submit it to, or for the city clerk to contact this attorney for some suggestions on clarifying and maybe some samples from other charters on some that'll clarify this, and then bring that into a work session for council.
So
Any, okay, Councilman
just a
Gleason.
question, so
Yep.
the motion was just to get an idea from her not to put this on the ballot? I thought the motion was to put this on the ballot for March 2nd.
It was. The mayor has kind of reworded the motion, but based
That's
on what
worries, you know.
Can you repeat the motion? Because I am getting lost. Discussion here.
No, because
The motion wasn't to put it on the ballot. The motion was to bring us forward something that we could maybe put on the ballot or modify, consider for the ballot.
That's what I thought I heard.
okay.
Okay.
Consider. Okay.
Because we would have to approve specific ballot language
Yeah, I mean,
and everything to put it on the ballot.
What I'm kind of hearing from council is you want to kind of iterate this, get some ideas for what it might take to clarify this before you make a big investment in wordsmithing it, and then have a little bit of council discussion about what your intent is. So I'm just trying to restate what I'm hearing. I'm not trying to change the motion. Any discussion from council online? Okay, roll call vote, please.
David Allison,
Yes.
Melina Meyer,
Yes.
Tom Baylor,
Yes.
Ann Schaefer,
Yes?
Jeff Guard,
Yes.
David Gleason,
Yes.
Kathy Sherman.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, next item is council action on disposal and method of disposal for Alaska State Land Survey 79-258. This may be discussed in executive session. I might suggest to council, after kind of conferring with the clerk and legal advice, that the idea might be to make a motion on which method you would like to pursue, and then if you want to go into executive session to give specific direction. For example, if you vote to dispose of it by direct negotiation, that might then, the parameters of that negotiation would be kind of executive session material that you want to keep confidential. And so I just make that comment. And then again, Vice Mayor Meyer declared a conflict of interest, so she'll be recusing herself. Councilman Allison.
Mr. Mayor, I move to recommend disposal of ASLS 79-258 as outlined in Cordova Municipal Code 5.22.060B by requesting sealed proposals to lease or purchase the property.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Councilman Allison, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yeah, we can always, after we get proposals, go back to one of the proposals can be this swap deal that we've got, but I need more information before I can even consider that. We don't have before us the appraised value of either of the properties, the square footage of what we're talking about, or the number of acres, or, you know, there's just other questions that I have, but on almost all the properties that we've done here, we get in trouble when we don't put it out for proposals, and we've always got the option to direct negotiate there isn't a reason that I can see to not start the process with sealed proposals and from everybody that's out there. Now that we've had a letter of interest, that's our general process, and I don't think we should sway from it at this point in time. So I will be supporting the motion as is with the option 2 there.
Okay, Councilman Baylor, to your second.
Yeah, I agree with everything Mr. Allison just said. And I mean, this is basically a land swap. Anybody can do a colored picture showing a subdivision. There's no really nuts and bolts to any of this. I'm a little concerned that the planning commission didn't really ask a lot of questions. I mean, simple questions like, could we even provide water for that many lots if it ever came to being? One of the members rents from the proposal and has done a lot of work from. I think at the very least, there should have been a suggestion of a conflict of interest and discussed. But I think we should go in executive session. I have some other questions that, excuse me, legally that I think we need clarifying before I could move forward on this.
Okay, and then just a reminder, during public comments, the proposer did mention that they'd be online if there's any council questions and you want to move that direction. So just then comments in order. Councilman Myers recused. Councilman Sherman.
I agree with the way Mr. Allison has proposed this. And I would also ask that we move into executive session.
Okay. Councilman Gleason.
I agree with previous statements of the three other council people.
Okay, Councilman Gard.
I agree with the motion as stated. There's still information I need to make any kind of decision. I'd agree with the move to go into executive session.
Okay, Councilman Schaefer.
Yeah, I also agree with the motion as Councilman Allison made it, and I'm also happy to go into executive session.
Okay, so it sounds like you're ready to vote. So we'll vote on the method of disposal and then take up a separate motion to go into executive session to discuss the parameters of that.
Well,
Is that the Councilman Allison?
yeah, no, the motion is to approve going out using that disposal method.
Yes. But to discuss it into
so if we're going to
executive
discuss it in executive session, I think we need to do that before we vote.
Okay. Is that
Except, well,
Right, I agree. 'Cause
what
otherwise,
could come up in the executive session that would help you make your vote? You know what I mean? I thought the executive session would be about helping staff develop the RFP.
Well, apparently there's some questions about whether we're going to get to that point or not.
So if we vote on it now, then we'd have to come back in and we'd have a motion to reconsider.
We wouldn't have a motion to go into executive session about.
So you think that
okay?
it's
I see what you're saying. I agree. So
I think the attorney had said it would be okay to go in for financial reasons if you make it clear as why you think that, you know, that there would be, you know, possible, you'd be giving away information to a negotiator, a possible negotiator, if you didn't take it into an executive session first. So as long as you kind of say that when you make the motion to go into executive session, and it'll be on the record that way. Okay?
Councilman Allison.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we go into executive session to discuss this matter, the immediate knowledge which would clearly have an adverse effect upon the finances of the government. There are financial questions regarding the lease sale agreement for ASLS 79-258.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to go into executive session. Discussion? Okay, hearing none, roll call vote.
So this is on going into the executive session. Jeff Gard?
Yes. Yes.
Ann Schaefer?
Yes?
Melina Meyer is conflicted. David Allison?
Yes.
Kathy Sherman?
Yes.
David Gleason?
Yes.
And Tom Baylor?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Okay, so we'll go into executive session, and then we want to make sure we suspend YouTube and clear the line, and I'll ask Councilman Meyer to disconnect, and then we can contact you to reconnect after the executive session discussion.
We want to try to finish the meeting first, do you think, and then do this last? So it,
What's council's will? Would you like to table this to the end of the meeting for expediency?
because I have to put that wall up, I think.
Yeah. So I've lost a couple councilmen here. Is there any objection
I
So
think
tabling this to the end of the meeting?
For structural
That's
purposes.
fine.
Okay, that sounds fine. So we'll just take a short recess till we get the rest of the council back. Do you counsel that, copy that, Councilman Meyer?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, yeah, we'll
So
just,
we're gonna do the-
we'll move the executive session.
Afterwards, so I can stay on for moving on to pending agenda and stuff.
Yeah, we'll move it to the very end of the agenda around, behind council comments and everything. And then that way you're just free to go afterwards and we can close the doors back here and go into executive session. And then you wouldn't be voting on the main motion anyway, so.
Oh, no, not that, but the.
Okay.
Oh.
All right.
Okay, so we're back out of recess and we have YouTube back on. So basically, council, with no objection, we elected to just move the executive session and the main motion to the end of the agenda so that we can organize the room and go into that executive session. And then, of course, we'll come back on the record for the vote on the main motion. So the next item of business would be the discussion of the COVID-19 emergency response. And I'll just go through council in order. Sometimes there's a lot of discussion here, sometimes there isn't. So Councilman Allison?
Yeah, I guess the only discussion I have at this point in time, I guess, is that I would agree with Tom that I still think one of those ACO trailers, you know, it'd be pretty easy to put another door on the other end if they can't find one with two doors. But I know they build them with 2 doors. I've seen them around with that. And so as far as COVID, I guess that's the only comment I would really have on that. I think everything is, knock on woods, going all right. Appreciate everybody's time they're still putting in there.
Councilman Sherman?
Yes, thank you. I was going to agree with the same thing because I don't see this going away anytime soon, and we should come up with a solution while we have some funding potentially available, and maybe it could be reused for something else. But I think a solution for those folks who are doing that job. I was out there the other day, and it's not pretty on an ugly day. So I think it would be worth looking into at least. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Meyer? Vice Mayor Meyer, are you on mute?
Now for the discussion.
No, she said she was going to stay.
We may have a technical problem there or may have stepped away for a second. I'll come back. Councilman Baylor?
Just echo everybody else's comments.
Councilman Guard?
No comments this time.
Councilman Schaefer?
No, I don't think I have any comments at this time other than to, thank the people that are still working on the IMT and the ambassadors out at the airport and our medical team.
Councilman Gleason?
No comment.
I'll go back to Councilman Meyer. Any comments on the COVID-19 emergency response discussion?
She had hung up. I don't know why.
Okay, I misunderstood. I thought I'd heard. Councilman, Vice Mayor Meyer. We just have, was that you that called back in?
Yes, sorry.
Okay.
I don't have anything to add to the COVID discussion. I was listening to it on YouTube. That hasn't already been said, so thanks.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Council, for the clarification on thoughts on accommodations out at the airport for ambassadors. Any further discussion? Okay, next item is pending agenda. Vice Mayor Meyer, did you want to kick off? You had an item that you had suggested for pending agenda.
One was, it sounds like the staff's already on the DOT White Shed kind of path. I remember when this came back and staff had tried to reach out to do something there too. But I really think that we need some kind of signage out there. And it seems like waiting for DOT, maybe this time around, we can get some signs. I just think that's just the short-term fix. But if it means the city purchasing signs and saying caution, 1 lane ahead, then I think that we need to discuss purchasing those signs and just doing it. Just a dangerous area. So I don't know if we need another update from staff. That's good enough that we did, but I just don't want it to fall on the wayside and just until another letter comes to us. And then the other thing this might be a little better to put on the agenda is the assessor discussion on getting a new one, going out to RFP. I think we need to have at least a discussion on that.
Okay.
I feel like there was support of a second on that, right? So I will add the assessor RFP to the pending agenda. Okay.
Okay. And do we want to, like as an action item for council direct city clerk to go out to bid or
Well, I'm just adding it to the
manager?
pending agenda right now.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Unless you guys
No, I think we heard a pretty widespread council support, so we can put that on pending agenda. And bring it up sometime around budget time, I think was a discussion, so. Okay. I can't read my own notes here.
So,
Yeah, Susan, you mentioned we've got a heavy workload with lots of work sessions
Right.
coming up and so forth. We talked
Nothing-
about a work session for that clarification on 519, so go ahead.
right, nothing next week on Wednesday. And then the week after, the 30th, is the training, the Zoom training. And I'm still getting the answer, Councilmember Allison, about, I mean, you'll get some kind of a recording or some kind of an ability to have that. And then the 7th, before the regular meeting on October 7th, we have EVOS, what are they calling it? Like a restructuring of the EVOS funding. Rachel Calander is working with a group, and so they want, I believe they would like the whole hour, if you guys are okay with an hour work session before the October 7th meeting. It'll be a presentation and then time for questions and answers with them.
Can we get to presentation before the meeting, though? Usually they have a paper pack.
Yes, like the way you got it tonight, that's
Yeah, that'd be good,
helpful.
so we could.
I agree, okay.
Good.
I can
Good
make that
suggestion.
suggestion. And then on October 14th, which is not our usual date, but it's the in-between, you have somebody who's coming in from liability insurance?
We've had, there's been questions on the part of council around our insurance, both liability, health, and other things. There's someone who is coming to town and will make a presentation to school board, CCMC, and us simultaneously if we're interested in that. And it would be to help us understand as a body what the requirements are for our various types of insurances, the risks to city of the types that we need to be aware of, and what our options are, not specific to any broker or anything, but the kinds of considerations we need to make when we're selecting insurance. So if you're interested in that, we have someone who could make that presentation. Again, they'll be in town doing that with the school district and CCMC.
So that would look like a joint work session or just a presentation?
It would be a joint presentation to all of the bodies from those entities.
And it would just be advertised like a quorum of council may be present, but.
Yeah, are you going to try and do the theater or something?
No, I mean, I would hope, I think between the hospital and the school, there's 10 people that would be added to this group for a presentation. So I think we could do it in this space.
Okay, will the council, you want to participate in that, council?
I will by phone. I won't be.
Okay. Would that be an option to call in?
Yeah, we'll have the same setup.
Okay. Any councilman online? Any objection to participating?
No, I think it's a good thing to know.
Okay, so that, I'm not hearing any, so that would be the 17th. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
And then I'm just assuming that we're going to keep this up and going until somebody tells me otherwise. Always the ability for people to call into these meetings for a while. Okay. That's all I had for pending agenda.
Okay, so first item, so next week, the 23rd is open, but I'll just mention that that's my normal co-op meeting night, so it'd be a conflict for me, but Councilman Baylor?
Yeah, I guess you answered one of the questions. I won't be here for the training. I'm going to be out of town.
Okay.
So yeah, if we can get a recording of that. Then the other thing on pending agenda, it doesn't have to be on the next meeting, but I think we need to start looking at the interim city manager. And I would frame that around, I know with the last city manager, we kind of discussed having assistant city manager, and I don't want to hire another position, but I think framing that around as interim, assistant, do we start to train somebody up, with the eye on that succession plan? I think council should maybe have a little discussion about that and see if we don't have somebody in our ranks that would fit that bill. So that was my thought, was like, let's start training some people up. And of course, again, it's the manager's role, but we do I think we hire interim city managers and stuff like that. So I thought that would be a good discussion to have.
Yeah, and I'm not sure what the code is. If we could maybe get some background on, because I know the council supports an acting city manager, and that's kind of a mechanism to train someone who could act as interim if there's a. So and then I'm not sure how that. I think council just appoints interims if there's a vacancy. So,
But if we can kind of get that, I think giving the manager guidance of like what, you know, what we'd like for, we hope you're here for 10 years, but things come up and,
okay,
you
know. Councilman Garden.
When that had been suggested before, it wasn't as an interim or that, it was an assistant city manager. So I don't think there'd be any appointing or anything we'd have to do for that.
I'm just kind of warping it all into one discussion.
All into one discussion.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Continuity of government or continuity of manager, and there's different paths. So are we suggesting a time or just adding it?
I
to
know,
the
I'm not
pending
really
calendar?
certain what I'm putting on then, as what that little discussion just was.
Just discussion of interim city manager, we can wharf it in.
If I may make a suggestion, I think that's directly related to as well budget. So that might be an opportunity during a budget work session to discuss the value that the council places on those interim type positions and the necessary financial impacts that will have on the budget. So it could potentially be integrated into a budget discussion. The value we place on any of our departments, what kind of things does the council want us to invest in? And if there's a concern about succession planning, how does council want to invest in that? And it will have a budgetary impact or could have a budgetary impact.
So Councilman Baylor, it sounds like it's kind of watering down the manager discussion, so.
Yeah, I don't, well, you currently, when you leave, you have an interim city manager. Is there a budget implication there?
Oh, okay, so you're just talking about if I go out of town for a vacation or something like that, not if I leave the position, what is our succession planning? I
think all the above.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think a discussion and then.
Yeah, got it.
And then if I couldn't, with the finance committee, I brought up the suggestion about I think we should have this review. Our funds should be reviewed every 3 years, 4 years, whatever. But you've got this committee. It'll be interesting to see, maybe like you call them professionals, what their thoughts was on that too, and maybe bring that recommendation. Because I think just carte blanche, letting somebody have a contract for 10 years is a mistake, so.
Okay, so back to the manager discussion. I'm just trying to figure out where and how to land that on the, so pending agenda, and it could happen during the budget discussion, but just Councilman Allison.
Yeah, I was going to suggest we just put succession planning in generic terms.
There you go.
And put as part of budget on the pending agenda so that we know that that's to be discussed with them.
I think I can word it, and I could make it fit on one line.
Yeah.
I'll find a way.
Okay.
And I just wanted to add that I'm gonna, from now on, keep the most recently approved CIP list resolution will be now included in the pending agenda.
Okay.
Calendars and elected and appointed official lists and CIP, most recently approved CIP list. So you can just, it should have been up for quarterly look this time, or maybe last time, but you guys need to tell me at each pending agenda if anybody wants to make changes for the next time.
The other thing for pending agenda, I think we're starting to wander into city manager, city clerk evaluation timeframe. So I'll just get with the city manager and HR to get look at those timelines and those packets and make sure we're on schedule with those.
You're right, she's in there for October. Mine is later.
So I like to get those materials out to council ahead of time to review. Yeah, Councilman Gard.
One question. I'm still not clear on what we're doing with the interim succession planning, whatever, for city manager. I'm not clear on what we're trying to do with this.
Okay, what I heard, the suggestion for pending agenda was a discussion of basically city manager, various aspects of it, succession planning internally, if there's a vacancy or appointing interim managers. But I think a lot of it around succession planning, in other words, contingencies for manager continuity. So
Okay.
is a discussion. So
But nobody's put it on an agenda yet. It's just going on pending agenda as of.
yeah, it's just on pending agenda for a
Okay.
future agenda item. Further pending agenda items, council.
So I guess we didn't make a decision about when we're going to talk about,
519.
Correct.
The work session, yeah.
yeah.
So, council, do you want to wait until we get something back from Holly, some samples and stuff, and then just keep it on pending agenda to schedule for a work session? Or do you want to schedule a work session now?
Well, I think,
This is Melina.
Vice Mayor Meyer.
Yeah, I think it would be better for us to get the material and then schedule it in as a work session. Our calendar has been kind of full, and sometimes we don't get material until right before a work session. So who knows when we'll get it. It'd be nice just to get that, and then maybe our next regular council meeting we can schedule the actual work session in somewhere.
Okay, I'm seeing nods in the room, so we'll just put that on pending agenda now, and then when we get materials back, council can take it up to schedule an actual work session time. Other pending agenda, any other pending agenda items?
Mayor Copeland, this is Councilman Sherman.
Councilman Sherman.
So it's almost the end of September. Now I'm just wondering about budget workshop.
We have reached out, Ken has reached out to all department heads, and we're starting the process of putting the budgets together. We have requested that departments put together their operating budgets as well as any capital budgets as separate documents. And I'm guessing we're going to have our first work session in the very early part of November.
Ugh.
Does that answer your question, Councilman Sherman, or do you have any follow-up comments?
It does. I feel like that's quite late. But miracles can happen.
Yeah, I just missed the tail end of that.
Yeah.
It feels like it's late, but
I just said miracles can happen.
miracles can happen. Okay, we caught it.
Well, and we're definitely actively working on it. We will have a final, the timeline at this moment in time is, I believe the final council meeting in December is the 16th or something along those lines. That will be the meeting at which you will approve the budget for 2021. And then backing up from that, 2 weeks prior to that, we will have the kind of draft final for any last minute changes. And then the month preceding that, we'll be working with you. There'll be more than one budget work session, let's just put it that way. But we'll present an initial budget and then be actively working on it through the middle part of November to get you a quote unquote final review for passage at the December 16th-ish council meeting.
And just a reminder of the context, we've had, I'm sorry, go ahead, Councilman Sherman.
I was just going to ask when the audit would be available.
Right now, it's in final stages. We should have that within a week and a half or so. I would say 2 weeks maximum, and we'll make sure everyone gets a copy of that, and we can have our auditors present, especially if there's any findings of any kind.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I was just thinking of the CARES Act funding, and they've got that race kind of going on to expend those, and those are pretty significant
There's been
impact
a lot of impacts, as you can imagine, on our finance department with the reporting requirements for the CARES funding and everything like that. And if there's a will of the body that you would like to have our first budget earlier, we will do our darndest to get it to you sooner than the very first meeting in November.
Okay, anything else, Council? Councilman Guard,
I'm just worried about
microphone, please.
I'm just worried about length of time to work on the budget. And I know it's been a really odd year with everything that's been thrown on staff's plate, and this is no diss for any of staff. We appreciate everything you've done, but we're probably looking at some strange times ahead for next year and the budget with it, and not having a budget to work on until the first week in the first meeting in November doesn't give us much time.
So we can certainly push that back to the, if it would please the body, we could do it the second meeting in October. Partly, there's a couple reasons, is we want to make sure that we have someone on the ground now with finance who can make sure that every single document has been thoroughly reviewed and worked with the departments, and that's what he's working on now. The second thing is that we will have an opportunity to have real numbers on the ground from some of the, especially the funding sources. We'll know what our raw fish tax is. We'll know what certain things are, have a better sense of what the governor has in his budget, whether or not we could rely on that or not. But there'll be a little bit more certainty as we approach October than there will be if in the middle of October. So what I want to avoid is giving you a document that's based on incomplete information.
I understand.
So we'll do our best to get you something as complete as possible at the second meeting in October. We'll commit to that.
I'm not trying to force us into doing something that's going to make us spin our wheels and have to move backwards.
Yeah. Yeah, and I understand too the pressure of time. So we'll move. And we'll go back 2 weeks and make a commitment to that. And if it looks like we're going to be struggling with getting you a document that is as accurate as possible, that will give you the information you need to make decisions, we will request an adjustment and move it into the first week in November. But I think we can do that. Ken, he's going to quit tomorrow. No, he won't. We'll just make that happen. So second board meeting, council meeting in October, we'll have a draft budget that is as good as we can get at that moment in time. And then we'll make the adjustments we need to over the course of the next couple of meetings. And again, just plan for budget work sessions in November.
Council, would it be, I'm just thinking out loud here, it would be helpful to have an agenda item on the next regular meeting to discuss the budget? Because I just get a sense from your questions and from staff that there's going to be a lot of uncertainty in 2021, and sometimes putting a ton of effort into a real detailed budget that isn't going to happen. I'm just wondering if it would be worth council having a discussion or if it'd be helpful to you, Helen, if they just kind of gave some general parameters like, let's kind of keep our same budget we had last year, but let's be real conservative or something along those lines. Would it be worth having an agenda item discuss the budget process?
I mean, that might be better than trying to force staff into throwing out a piece of paper that may not be worth the paper it's.
And maybe you could put a timeline together for.
Yeah, we could do a timeline, and then you could provide the feedback that you think. I think one of the things that everyone's wondering is, how are we looking with our sales tax? What are the impacts on COVID been with a variety of things? And we can do our best to get some kind of general estimates to give you guidance on, and so you can give us the feedback that we need to on the budget. Obviously, we're not anticipating there's going to be any big budget increases, but
if we've got to make some major structural changes,
yeah. So we're
reality is that I'm just worried about the amount of time we got to come up with.
Yeah, and we're worried about making sure you have the best information that we can provide to give you the management tools you need to make those decisions. So.
Okay, so let's go ahead and just add budget discussion to the next regular agenda. And then I think we've got plenty of pending agenda items in front of us now. So if there's no objection, we'll move on into audience participation. And again, we do have some audience in the room, but the call-in number is 253-6202, 253-6202. And just while we're waiting for a call to come through, I'll just remind that we'll then go to council comments, then we'll go into executive session for item regarding council action and disposal method versus disposal of Alaska State Land Survey 79-258. And then we'll come back in onto the record and into public discussion for the vote with Councilman Meyer recused. And that'll be the last item before adjournment. Is there any calls for audience participation? Okay, seeing none, and I see none in the room.
Clay, I'm still on here. Greg.
Greg, okay, thank you. So what we'll do is when we go into executive session a little late, do you have any audience participation comments? Okay, great. You have the floor.
Okay. Okay, first off, Greg Meyer, 1 Henry Row. I want to thank you guys for taking a look at the city appraiser. My personal property got reassessed this year apparently, and it went up 250%. And I was able to negotiate that down, but it still went up 50%. And I don't know where they came up with the 250, but they were quick to reduce it and just seemed pretty absurd and arbitrary. But I'm glad you're taking a look at that. And second, the hospitality industry was just decimated this summer. I know you guys aren't seeing it in your sales. I think you will this third quarter. But our business alone is going to be down $2 million in revenue, and that's a pretty hard hit for 1 year in business, and it's all pandemic related. The hotel was open, was never shut down. The restaurant was open for takeout, and then we did our the in-dining, outside dining when the weather was nice. So we really weren't closed at all, and we're going to lose a tremendous amount of revenue. And we've had to lay off a lot of staff, and we'll be laying off virtually everyone this winter. And the for sale sign will be up, and we're hit hard. And I just hope you can look at the businesses in the hospitality industry. Right now, you have the more taxes on the hospitality industry than anyone in town. We've got the surtax, we've got sales tax, we've got alcohol tax, and there's a lot of lost revenue this year, but it's going to take 5 years for us to make this up if we have some good years. And I would like to see something like do away with the bed tax, but the surcharge tax, because it's on rental cars too, for 2 to 5 years, which would help us, and we can raise our revenues. Right now, our bed tax is 12%. We could raise our revenues, our rooms for 10% and make up a little bit over the next few years. But with those big taxes on, it's really hard to increase the room rates. And two, I'd like to see if you would consider deferring our water and sewer until next September. At least not us have those costs. Our water and sewer alone over the winter is going to be $3,500 a month. And if we could get that deferred till next September, that would help us a lot, because we're not going to have anyone in the hotel this winter. Very few. We normally don't have very many to begin with. So, those two measures would help us. And, we really need help. I don't know if you've heard from the other hotels or restaurants or, but that would be helpful. And third, real quick, I hope you, on our land swap deal, I thought I was doing the city a big favor. We're talking millions of dollars in this land swap and negotiations. If you look at the fine print in that water tanks and the water tank lease, and read the lease real careful, because it can cost the city millions if we don't do this. And I'm just saying, I'm giving the city an opportunity to renegotiate this lease. That tank is extremely valuable to the city, and if we don't renew that lease when it comes up, a new water tank, a new location is going to cost the city millions and millions. And this land swap right now will give us a chance. We have a new construction company, and it'll give us a chance to get that rock quarry back open for the other folks in town, and also develop that land. And we had 100% support from the Science Center and the Planning Commission. So I just hope you consider this real strongly. And if you do open the bid, we probably won't be one of the participants, because we can still get the rock out of that pit. And if you sell that pit and close it, you're going to have to open another pit for us somewhere that's the same location or the same distance and same expense for us to get the rock out. So I just hope you take careful consideration of what's involved here and decide wisely. I really am trying to save the city some money and create an opportunity for our new construction company to create some more lots for folks and maybe some warehouse lots for some of the fishermen and commercial folks. And anyway, take a real careful look at this, please. I think it's a win-win for all of us, and I just hope that the city doesn't squander a really good opportunity. So thank you very much. It's doing a great job. Thanks.
Thank you. We have another audience comments. If you could state your name for the record, please. Okay, you're online. If you could state your name and residence for the record, please. Audience comments.
This is Kelsey Hayden, 1.7 mile White Shed Road, no home number, Prince William Marina Road. I don't really have address, so I feel that addressing nightmare referenced earlier. I wanted to speak to the work session earlier on the police survey. I want to state, though, that these are certainly my own opinions, and I don't speak for my husband, who's an officer for the PD. I've got plenty of thoughts on all sorts of things without adding his in, too. So I appreciate the comments and work put into the survey and wanting to foster open and positive dialogue with the police department and the community during a time when most places are having the opposite of that. I'd call that a success so far. I did a quick Google of similarly sized communities to look briefly at community policing and staffing levels. And I found a report wrangled that in 2018, they take a pretty committed approach to community policing. They've got a DARE program, an animal control person. They teach hunter safety programs in the school, give presentations regularly to organizations in the school, lots of communication. They have 16 total officers. 5 to 8 are patrolling officers, and they have reserve officers for when those guys are out of town, as well as some correctional ones. Being involved with the town and the level that I think we want means more officers, certainly not 16, but more. We have an amazing resource in Jason Wetzel, who's lived and worked here and had a lengthy and impressive resume with APD, specifically in building a community policing program in Anchorage, and from what I gather, he's going to help. The conversation of 24/7 coverage always interests me. As long as there's 24 hours in a day, we have to have 24/7 coverage, neither or not, just like the emergency room. Someone's always got to be waiting for that call. You can see in the survey how folks have complaints against delayed response time. If the budget or vacancies don't allow proper staffing and you have officers on call instead of in service, you'll always have that issue. Likewise, when you only have one person on days and they're at the airport, when things go down, the issue persists. 4 to 5 officers and 4 to 5 officers and a chief just don't really cover the hours and the need for the community involvement that I think we're seeing in the survey when you factor in leave time for training, vacations, medical appointments, and all that. Plus, you figure the population doubles in the summer, you expect the work to increase too. I too had this view of Cordova as this wonderful little Mayberry from growing up here, living here, and in many ways we are, but being with police officers starting to change that in my mind. So let's get all my information from court view, but I was blown away by the sheer time it takes to deal with a case. When I get an end of shift text that my husband's going to be home late due to a DUI, I know it'll be at least 4 hours until he's home, just in doing paperwork, and that's not even counting court time and whatever other hours he puts in. We also have a drug dog. He's a great dog, and he needs to be put to work, and he needs face time in this community, but when we don't have the staffing to work him properly, we all lose. I hope future conversations will shed light on what the department needs to be successful at the level that we want and what we as a community need to do to support our police department. And I also want to put a plug in for Nate. I hope that after 2 months of being the interim chief that he will be made the chief. He's putting the work in and has the drive to take the department where we want it to go. Personally, I think the last thing our community needs is a retired guy from the lower 48 coming in to ride out a couple years in a cool spot
when we have a dedicated and experienced officer here who's heavily involved and committed to the community. So props to Nate. Thank you, Council and Helen, for all your work in this, and I look forward to where this takes our town. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. We caught most of that, but it was a little choppy, and I just missed the community, the comparison community that had 18 officers.
Wrangle.
Wrangle? Okay, thank you.
It was Wrangle. Yeah.
Okay,
I don't
great.
have very good service out here. It's sticking my head by the window, but yeah, it was Wrangle. And I can send that report I found on the internet too. That's helpful.
Okay, thank you. Further audience participation, that number again is 253-6202. And we'll watch the phone as we go through council comments here in case another call comes in. So I'll go through council comments just in the order on my list here. Councilman Gleason.
Just thanks to staff and to our cops, all the police officers. I know they're doing a tough job with just 3 police officers. That's a lot of hours, and thanks to their wives for helping them through it. So that was a great comment, Kelsey.
Councilman Baylor.
Yeah, well, I look forward to getting the data on the police so we can have a better understanding of that. Just to kind of clarify where I was going with the city manager, assistant manager, leadership is important, and in a construction crew, you'll have the foreman, but you always have a lead. In fact, they'll have advertisements for lead carpenters. And the lead guy is somebody that's been brought along up to a point. He's bought in, he's shown the plans, he's reliable. And when the foreman's off the job, the lead can take control and run the project. You can always rely on him. He can get along with all the employees, with the customer, with the public. So that was my thought process, is we need, in the construction terms, we need a lead person within the city, somebody that we can slowly bring along and they have an understanding. So I think Clay's probably doing it at the co-op. You know, any good manager is going to pick out, they understand who's there and who's going to be there in the long term, and you kind of groom people that way. So, and thanks to staff, everybody's been working hard. It's, I'm glad to see the city open, and thanks for everybody's time.
Vice Mayor Meyer. Okay, we're not hearing you on this end. Councilman Guard.
I'd like to echo all the comments on thanking staff from one end of the city to the other for everything they've been doing for us in this. We really appreciate it. And I don't know how or if we could communicate to our current assessing company our issues we had last year, so we maybe run some flags up the pole so they know what to be watching out for this next year, so we don't have to go through any of that again.
There might be somebody close to say something.
I suspect when the clerk tells them that the council wants to go out for bid, there'll be some questions.
I understand.
I think we might have lost them online. Can we just pause for a minute so I can restart?
Okay, Melina, and that's why I keep my cell phone here, honestly, is just because of the communications to make sure someone from the public or council. She mentioned she didn't have any comments.
I know.
And she's
But Ann
adding
was
something.
dropped because
Okay.
I think it's that 10 p.m.
Is it that 10 o'clock?
Well, but it hasn't happened in a long time.
Yeah.
Who the hell knows?
Oh, because we started early
knows?
today.
Sometimes the ghost
Do we
just
only
cuts
get
us
so
off.
many hours of stuff, or I thought it
Most
ran
of
till the...
Okay, so Councilman Sherman, do we have you online?
I don't know.
I hung up now, so now they.
Okay, so we're gonna restart here.
Conferencing service.
Please enter your conference identification.
So please, council, if you're watching YouTube, call back in.
The administrator has not yet arrived. If you are the administrator, please.
Really? That's me?
The conference administrator has joined the conference. There are 3 attendees on the conference call.
Okay, council, who do we have online now? Councilman Meyer?
She was going to stay off. She said she had no comments.
Okay, she didn't have any comments. She'll stay off. Councilman Schaefer? Councilman Sherman?
Yes, I'm in here.
Okay, so we just lost Councilman Schaefer, but Councilman Sherman, I'll go to you for council comments.
Sure, I won't prolong this much longer. I just wanted to commend the Public Works Department for choosing to replace Bill Howard. I think that was a really great choice. And congratulations to the water sewer folks. I know how hard they work, so thank you.
Thank you. And Councilman Schaefer, did we just get you back?
Yeah, yep, I just got back on.
Okay, I'll go to you for council comments.
I don't think I have any comments. Thank you to everyone. Thank you to staff for getting the Cordova Center opened up, and then also all the work that's being done over at Bedarkey is pretty impressive. It's cool to see all the progress that's being made.
Okay, thank you. I didn't mean to blindside you there. That problem was on our end. It sounded like the conference call dropped you off. So, Councilman Gard? Council comments, Councilman Gard?
I thought I just did them.
Maybe you did. We were right in the middle of dropping that call, so.
What did he say?
Thank everybody again, and that's it.
I heard you, Jeff.
Sorry.
Okay, Councilman Allison, I think I skipped you.
Losing it.
Okay. This, once again, thanks to Chief Taylor for coming tonight and presenting to us and then sticking with us through the rest of it all. Thanks to you and your entire department. Thank Kelsey, Mrs. Hayden, for her comments. She did mention that Jason Wetzel participated in, he retired from the Anchorage Police Department and he spent a few years on a community policing group. And anyway, I haven't talked to him directly, but I've seen him make comments to other people on Facebook chats that he's willing to talk to us, answer questions, give us his perspective if we're interested in that at all. And also former Chief Hicks, he directly chatted with me about his willingness to also talk to us about his perception and what he's learned over the years as well. So those two resources that we've got there that are willing to share their knowledge, and we should take advantage of that, I believe. Like to be sure that we send the survey results, at least a summary, to our district attorney's office. I don't think that can hurt at all, that they know the concerns of our citizens who are also paying their salary. So, and just a little funny that I thought that our survey asking for community input, the seventh item in order of priority for out of 8, and 8 was other, was listen to comments, concerns from citizens, or from the citizen. I don't know exactly how that was worded, but listening to resident concerns was 7th in priority out of a list of 8, and 8 was other. So I just thought that was kind of humorous that our survey asking for that information. I guess that just tells you that other things are much higher priority, but it didn't make the top 3 for 80% of our respondents. So I would say our officers are doing a pretty good job, and probably need a little bit more help from the budget as well as the district attorney's office and the courts. So we'll continue working on that. So thank you.
Okay, so council, you'd, with no objection, you had tabled the motion to go into executive session to discuss items, a matter of which would have an adverse effect upon the finances of the government, specifically discussing the parameters of requests for bids to dispose of Alaska State Land Survey 79-258. So entertain a motion to bring that off the table.
So moved.
Have a motion, and is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
Then we're going to move to go into executive session again.
Yeah, is there any objection to bringing that motion to go into executive session off the table? Or onto the table, I should say. Okay, hearing none. So we have a motion in front of you to go into executive session as stated.
Had you not voted on it previously? I can't remember.
Well,
We did.
they had, but we couldn't go into executive session, so we just tabled it.
Right, okay, but we voted on it, so I would
Yeah,
say.
so you had voted to go into executive session. So we'll go ahead and go into executive session now, and I need to just make sure that we only have two councilmen,
I'm
Schaefer.
gonna give you that other phone number.
Yeah, so give the other phone number to Councilman Schaefer and Sherman.
So let's recess here for a minute.
So we'll recess here for a minute, and we can clear the room for discuss the main motion and vote on the main motion. discussed were financial matters regarding city infrastructure and the disposition of city property, the knowledge of which would have an immediate adverse, or could have an adverse effect on the finances of the city. And no action was taken, so we're out of executive session now. The motion on the table is to dispose of Alaska State Land Survey 79-258 by requesting sealed proposals.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Baylor.
I would make a motion to refer that motion back to staff on the sale of
I'm putting it.
ASLS 79-258.
Okay. We have a motion, a second, and just for clarification, that would be put on the pending agenda to be pending a staff report as discussed in executive session to be
But they need to get more information.
addressed no later than the last regular meeting of December.
Yeah. The purpose of getting more information so council is well informed on the process.
Okay. And that motion seconded?
Yep.
Councilman Gleason?
Yes.
Okay, discussion to your motion, Councilman Baylor?
Nope.
Councilman Gleason?
Nope.
Second. Any further discussion, council? I'll just go through my list here. Councilman Allison?
Nope, thank you.
Councilman Sherman?
No, thank you, I'm in favor.
Okay. And Councilman Meyer again was recused due to a conflict of interest, immediate family. Councilman Guard?
No comment, I'm in favor.
Councilman Schaefer?
No comment. I'm also in favor.
Okay, so roll call vote, please.
On referring item 16 to staff. Ann Schaefer?
Yes.
Melina Meyer has a conflict. David Allison?
Yes.
Kathy Sherman?
Yes.
Tom Baylor?
Yes.
Jeff Guard?
Yes.
David Gleason?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Okay, council, that was the last item of business. We have a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Okay.
And, first, Councilman Guard?
Just a procedural thing. Did we need to do anything with the motion that was on the floor before? Or
It got referred to
That,
staff.
yeah, that was the
No,
motion.
no, the motion itself?
That active motion was referred to staff, yeah.
Okay, that's all.
I might have.
Okay, good question. So we have a motion, a second to adjourn. Is there any objection?
No.
Hearing none, we're adjourned.
Did you beat me to that?